Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exceptionally exciting episode of Messi Co. I'm Ashley, here as always with my incredible co-host Gian, and there are so many things to talk about. But why don't we start with saying we played a new intro this time. We're still going to be making some edits and some fine tuning, updating it a little bit. But after using that intro all of last season, what are we thinking? New and fresh and exciting, right?
Yep. Excited to. We're in the second game, but it's still early on enough to say new season and a lot going on. An amazing game to talk about. I think a lot of interesting points. But yeah. I'm excited to be here. Excited to talk into Miami. Excited to talk with everybody in the chat. So yeah, let's get to it.
I'm excited too. We're already getting some good comments, getting people in the chat. What's going on, Boss Daddy? What's going on, Ash? Mike V, Rocco, that is something we will be talking about goalkeepers. We'll be talking about everything in this game. So don't you worry. That new intro fire. Couldn't help but agree. Like we said, we want something that we'll be able to use all season, make sure we include our content. So it's just kind of the start. But glad we got to do something new and fresh. And then a game of two halves. That is not Ash. We're gonna come back to that because you're a smart cookie. I feel very similarly. And even for this one, I went in my bag and I brought some of our cards back. So starting with this, Inter Miami win 4-2 against Orlando City. Match reaction. And man, that's what we got to talk about. Obviously, we're going to talk about everybody. We're going to talk about everything. But let's start with just the overall thoughts of the match. And I'll start by saying, the atmosphere again for the second week in a row was electric. Obviously not home games yet because we're waiting for Freedom Park here in Miami, which is going to be awesome. But the atmosphere was electric in Orlando. The first time Messi was there, everyone was fired up. And I just kept thinking, like, wow, look at what MLS has turned into because this was a pure rivalry match, heated intensity, fans screaming, fans booing, everything you want to see. And so, before we even get into kind of like the X's and O's and the game and the goals, I just want to say, like, shout out to these first two matches and MLS and what everyone's doing because they're showing out.
Yeah, I mean it's what you come to expect from a Clásico, right? It's I think Messi, if there was any doubt in your mind that he knew how much this Clásico meant and how much he wants to win, like this takes away all doubts. Like this obviously was an electric environment. A lot of the fans from Miami went up as well. I saw Southern Legion there. I saw Vice City there. There were a lot of the supporters groups that went up as well. So that was awesome to see. But yeah, anytime these two teams match up, I think it's going to get rough. It's going to get physical, and there are going to be a lot of emotions, and rightly so. And it was the game that you expected it to be from the very beginning. I think, right? A lot of physicality, a lot of goals in this one, and that's something you like to see in any match that's considered a clásico. So I was happy with what I saw from a spectator's point of view, from an entertainment point of view. This is what you expect, and this is what you want to see. This is what MLS wants to see. They want to see these rivalries, have these big games, and look at Messi. Maybe we'll talk about it later, but look at Messi and him and his antics and how he went at it with the coach from Orlando. Like all these things make these types of games fun to watch.
Man, we were seeing like a, a rare version of Messi. And this isn't to say because we can just get to this now because I think it's just what everyone wants to talk about, and it's going to lead us into multiple conversations. Like, did Messi flip the switch? 100%. There's two things can be true. Number one, Messi every single game and week, and I mean this sincerely, and I think it's why he's the greatest of all time. Plays with sincerity, plays his hardest, is talented, cares about winning, cares about doing the right thing. Always, siempre. That is always what Messi is. However, this side of him where you see him antagonizing the players and then going to the coach's bench and be like, "Do you want me to sign the ball? You want an autograph after I just hit an absolute golazo?" And we've completely transformed this game. Talking his shit, really. Uh, man, he flipped the switch and just getting to see we always see him being the greatest of all time, but seeing him mad and the greatest of all time, like I said, that is really a fun thing to watch.
Yeah, I honestly I don't think it's anything new. Like it's something that's become a part of him. I don't remember watching him in Barcelona and seeing him this fired up. Honestly, he's always been somebody, and I think it's part of his Argentinian roots and his South American roots, or being in everybody's ear and um being the guy that's going to play the mental game as well. That's part I think you see a lot in South American soccer, being able to not just physically but just bother people, get in their minds and that sort of thing. And I think Messi's always done that his career, but I think more so now in MLS you see more of a fiery side. So I wouldn't say it was necessarily this game. I think, man, you constantly see in social media, you see videos of him talking with the referees after, chirping back and forth with players, going after referees after the game, during the game, talking with coaching staff. Like, to me, this game was nothing new. It's seeing him talk with Orlando's coach and asking him if he wants the ball signed, seeing how he talks to the players. It's something that we've kind of grown to expect from him now, and when since he's been here actually in MLS. It's a side of him that's kind of come out even more. I don't know if it's maybe the age, he's getting a little grumpy up there, getting into his 40s. Maybe he's
Or that
become the
he's
grumpy old
accomplished
man.
everything and he's like,
But
I've completed soccer, and now I'm
yeah,
just, showing you how
yeah.
it's done."
Maybe he feels that. Maybe he feels that he's talking. I mean, let's not pretend his level. He is above every other player in MLS level wise, as far as
Mhm.
what he's won, as far as how he plays, his skill level at almost the age of 40 is better than every other player in MLS. Maybe it's a little bit of that as well, or a little bit of he feels that he's better than everybody, and if you think that he's wrong, no, he's the one that's right, because he's got the experience, he's got the silver, or he's got everything. So I think that when you combine his experience with the fiery side that he brings and the fact that he wants to continue winning, you get to you see that type of behavior on the field. And look, that only lights a fire under everybody's butts here at Inter Miami. You can see how those antics and those things that he does, I think it just flows into all the other players and it makes them better for it. And I love to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that in general, like, we have seen over the last couple of years, like, his personality, I think, shine more and more, which was never really his thing. To your point, it was always just kind of like silent assassin. But in MLS and with Inter Miami, he's definitely got it. But I still think even in last night's game, like, you saw even like a level up, like a switch going a little higher. The rivalry, Florida's pink after obviously a disappointing performance from the team and a result against LAFC. I think you saw them be really, really hyped, and in the end, like, we got out of it 2 2 spectacular Messi goals. Now I think, the first goal was, I mean, just outside of the box, like, scoring and getting it into the side netting is like, man, that's a penalty for him, right? Like, it's just so crazy that he just is such a amazing marksman that he's able to score that kind of goal. And just like it's outside for most players, you'd be like, oh wow, that's a good, like, golazo, like, big goal outside the box for Messi. We're like, oh good, normal goal. Like, he as soon as it hit his foot, he already literally had turned his body and was running to celebrate. He knew it was going in, like, as it literally left his foot. So that was great. And then look for the free kick, yes, the goalkeeper could have done better, and we're gonna talk about goalkeeping in general. I know it's an important conversation we gotta get to, but, look, he still hits the free kick with pace into the very, very corner, the bottom corner. Yeah, the goalkeeper could have done better, but he still put it in a position where you have to be perfect to stop it, and the goalkeeper wasn't perfect, and so he goes in. That's still, brilliance from Messi, and so, yeah, those were pretty good goals in my opinion.
Look, I actually thought I think it's the celebration for the one that was the free kick. That was the one where he ran to the Orlando fans, right? And he extended his arms out. I think it was for that goal. I, for a split second, honestly thought that he was gonna. I don't know why. It's just maybe because I get excited because I love when he did this. But I, for a quick second, thought that he was gonna take his Inter Miami jersey off and hold it up like he did in that
Like,
iconic picture
yeah,
in
the
Barcelona.
yeah.
I thought first, I mean, he extended his arms, but I promise you, I envisioned that, and I thought that that would have been just absolutely epic. But even this image of him with his arms extended in front of
Yeah.
Orlando fans, flicking him off
All
and
flipping
yelling
him
at
off,
him
yeah.
was just incredible. But yeah, it's what you come to expect from Messi. So I think we should probably talk about the game. I don't know if you wanted to
Yeah,
head
I
that way,
can
Ash,
tee it
but
up.
kind of. But
Mhm.
yeah, let's talk about the game, and I think you said it, and it it's a contrast of two different halves. Like it really is, and so I'd love to kind of contrast those halves and talk about that.
Yeah, well, that's like Ash said in the comments, and like this Ash says as well. And like you say, Gian, a tale of two halves, no doubt. Um, first half, we saw uh there were two changes in the starting lineup from last week, but out Allende was a change that we all expected. Um, However, Silvetti on the bench, I don't think was something I expected at least, and we had spoken about it, and we said, um, it was either gonna be, uh, what was gonna be the price for getting Allende in the game? Was it gonna be for Segovia or was it gonna be for Silvetti? And in the end, it was for Silvetti, which surprised me. The first half
I,
wasn't great. Okay, you go. You start. I have so many
no, no,
thoughts, so you start.
no, yeah. So okay, what I'll say is, yeah, I agree. Tadeo Allende, we knew that he was going to be a starter at some point. The reason he didn't start last game is because he just wasn't fit to play a full 90, right?
Mhm.
And we were hoping. I know that you and I said it last episode. You said it. Did we think that Berterame could play, Allende could play, Messi could play, and Silvetti could all play on the field at the same time? Did we think that could happen? I thought it would, simply because, and you also agreed, because of the fact that you no longer have Suarez on the field. You have Berterame that can also help on defense. So it's okay to have Allende and Silvetti, because if Messi stays up top, when the team has to come back to help on defense, Berterame is also going to help. And it's not no longer two guys with Suarez and Messi in the past up front, and you're basically left to defend with less players than you really would want to, right? So we thought that that was going to be doable, and we also thought, well, hey, obviously Allende is going to start. He holds the record for most goals scored in an MLS postseason. He's the guy that they fought hard to bring back. Obviously, it was going to be him. Really, the reality was, if Allende is going to start, Berterame, we know 100% is going to start, and obviously Messi. The question then began to be, is it going to be Silvetti or Allende on that left-hand side?
For
And
Segovia, yeah.
we Silvetti or Segovia, correct.
Mhm.
And it ended up being Segovia, which was interesting because if we remember, against LA, even though they didn't end up scoring in that second half, once Silvetti came in, it looked a bit better offensively. I feel like it actually looked drastically better. But in this case, he brought in Segovia to start the game, and to me, I don't know. We'll take this one by one because there's a lot of thoughts, but let's see what you think about this. Like, Segovia playing on that left hand side, it's obviously completely different than having Silvetti. Silvetti, a guy that can create his own shot, dribble the
Mhm.
ball. He's a lot more dynamic. You already have the Rodrigo de Paul. You have Yannick Bright. Telasco Segovia is, I feel like, almost a repeat of having three. You basically have three midfield players that aren't going to create their own shots. You lose dynamism on that left hand side. You no longer have Jordi Alba. It really, you have nothing on that left hand side, and you can't play Telasco as a winger. It didn't make sense at that point. So that's why I feel like, at least at the beginning in that first half, it looked a little bit off. Like, what do you feel about that Telasco start over Silvetti?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you say. I think that will obviously, once we get into the second half, I think maybe there will be some warrant and discussion for saying, well, I didn't think Segovia deserved it in the first half, and I was very quick to say and was tweeting that Mascherano was, making the wrong decisions as it came to that. Um, I think Silvetti has to start. Segovia also, as we're going to talk about, he scores, he gets assists, he did all those things in the second half that led to Inter Miami winning the game, and that's you need to get rewarded for things like that when you play that. And so, um, but he wasn't on the same position he was in to start the game. And I see a comment here. There's a lots of comments and a lot of things I want to get to. So I think we should kind of do it in phases. Like we could talk about the attack, we could talk about the midfield, we could talk about the defense and goalie. Um, this is the point. Segovia needs to play centrally. He's ineffective in wide areas. Agreed. And so yeah, I didn't think the start. I didn't like the start. Obviously, talking about how they finished and how they came out in the second half is something that I did not expect and really, really surprised me and was in the end just really great tactical decisions by Javier Mascherano because we saw Silvetti came in. We all thought it would be for Segovia or for maybe Yannick Wright, for example, but it wasn't. It was for Noah Allen at the left back. And so you saw Inter Miami drop to a back three with Mikael as your left back. And man, it really was a surprise. But we saw then a scenario where you had Allende, Bertarame, Messi, and Segovia and Silvetti all starting, and even Rodrigo Paul all starting and all playing attacking, right? And what did it do? It led to 4 goals.
Yeah. And before we get to that second half, here's what look. I know it's still early on in the season, and I know people are going to be like, "Look, it was only game 2." I mean, I honestly had issues with game 1 already, and I had people saying the same thing. Hey, chill, it's only the first game. LAFC already had a Champions Cup game that they played. They were already ready. Look, to me, it's worrisome, honestly. I know that we won 4-2, and I'm happy. And obviously, I celebrated the win. And obviously, it being against Orlando made it that much better. But I am worried about this team. I'm worried about this team because, look, that first half was just about tiki-taka. It was controlling the ball, touching the ball, and not much else coming from it. And for me, I think it's a worrisome trend because, look, football's evolved. Barcelona, the king of tiki-taka, doesn't do that anymore. Soccer, football is a much faster paced game. You need to get the ball, and once you get the ball, you need to push forward. These teams that have given us issues, LAFC and Orlando in that first half before some of the changes that were made, I mean, they play much faster. They don't give a crap about giving Inter Miami possession and them holding the ball because they know that they have enough time to get back because Inter Miami, once they get possession, they're not going to push up and they're not going to with 1 or 2 passes be in ready to attack. They know that they have enough time to sit back, line up however they want to, and be ready to take on any attack from Inter Miami. Inter Miami has there's no sense of surprise. These teams know exactly what they're going to get from Inter Miami when it's just a slow, methodical side to side to side to side, and not much going vertical. And I think that became an issue. And then you have teams like Orlando and LAFC, and others are going to do this as well. It's as soon as they get the ball, Ash, 2, 3, 4, 5 passes, they're already ready to attack. And I think that that's something that Inter Miami has to be careful with. And I don't want to see, as beautiful as it is to see 60% possession, 65% possession, at the end of the day, if they're not doing much with it, it doesn't matter. That's not important. And the other thing I'll say is, for me to see Berterame, who was the leading Mexican scorer in Liga MX in 2025 on this team, to have Messi on this team, to have Tadeo Allende, who is the goal scoring record holder for the postseason, to have a young guy like Silvetti, to have De Paul, and this team, and this is me going through 3 halves, through both halves in LA and the first half against Orlando, and seeing them struggle to score. That's a coaching problem. That's not a players on the field problem. And we saw that the only reason Mascherano was able to figure this out just in time for the postseason was not because he made an executive decision. It's because it was taken out of his hands when Luis Suarez was received a suspension, which forced him to play a different way than he wanted to. At that point in time, he didn't have a center forward anymore. He had a false 9 with Messi. He had Tadeo Allende and Silvetti running up the wings and going forward and towards the middle to receive passes from Messi. That worked incredibly, obviously. It just completely changed the team. But we can't pretend here and say that, that was Mascherano's decision from the very start. So I'm worried because we saw a first half where they did nothing in that first half, basically. They
Mhm.
struggled to create anything offensively. And then in that second half, it looked much better, but it looked better because he shied away from what he really wants to play. That second half, it's because he was down 2-0 and his hand was forced. And okay, I think it was a good decision now, obviously in retrospect, but we have 3 halves that show us the type of football he's playing. We can't expect the second half in Orlando to come only when the team is down. Like, that's not always going to work. Like, thankfully it did
Mhm.
work this time, but I think that Mascherano has to figure out how to play this team offensively and not be stuck in his ways, and figure out how to play. Like, how this team operates well. You know how you need to have this team play. You saw it in the postseason. Don't go back to this tiki taka, hold possession and do nothing with it. So, that was that first half for me, and it is worrisome to me. I'm still not convinced that Mascherano knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I have a few thoughts, and we have a lot of comments coming in, so I wanna make sure we get to them and kind of use them as points of conversation. Um, I think that for Mascherano, I'm gonna have a little bit of a longer leash in the sense that, um, we said it once we won the MLS Cup, right? That yes, the Suarez decision, the first game was forced on him, but then he kept him out, and that takes some guts. He made the goalkeeping change to Rios Novo. That takes some guts, right? Like, I think he did those 2 decisions to help and was a huge part in winning, and so I give him credit for that. For this, we have a very small sample size. He made a lot of changes. He lost 2 of the greatest players to ever play their position at with Jordi Alba at left back and Sergio Busquets in your midfield. So I think it's, I'm gonna give him more than 3 halves to see what it looks like. I think, here saying I really miss Jordi Alba. There's no replacing him. Yeah, Noah Allen didn't have a good first half. Obviously, that was what Sergio Reguilon was brought in to do. Um, but Mascherano adapted, and Mikael had a fantastic second half and a fantastic game, and so did Yannick Bright. Went into positions that they don't normally play, but did what they had to do. And I think if we see a back three, I'm very curious to see. I said this last week, but I really mean it now. Now that we've seen both extremes, I'm really curious to see how he's going to play against CC because you know it's you have all these new players and you have positions. You need to figure out where everyone works best. Facundo Mura, I thought he had a really good game the second half of last week against LAFC. I think last night he was not as as active and what I wanted to see from him. And so that kind of thing needs to be monitored. Um I will say Maxi Falcon is just an absolute freaking beast, and we are very lucky to have him because he has been as steady as a rock, steady as nails, gets things done, makes things work, and so, I think for me, for Mascherano and for just in general, the changes that he made in the second half were really positive and surprised me, and it worked, and it made it and it was night and day. If the question now is, are you able to continue and to adjust? Are you able to, identify which players are gonna be able to help you move the needle and get the goals and get those opportunities and, defend when needing to and figure it out, right? So I don't disagree with you that I really didn't like what I saw in those first 3 halves. I really liked the adjustment he made and really going for it because, yeah, we were at all to play for it, but being 2 down, it's not like we were down 5-0 in the 70th minute,
Well, that's why I was
right?
worried. That's when I saw that when I saw the sub look, I saw I thought Silvetti was coming on for Telasco. When I saw him
Yeah.
come in for Noah Allen, that's where I got a bit worried. Why? Because I said, okay, look, you still have an entire half to play. You're gonna sacrifice a defender when this team has been struggling against that counterattack or that fast attack that Orlando brings. And now you're gonna have, instead of 4 guys, you're gonna have 3 guys versus 3 attackers on Orlando's end. I'm like, it's too early for that. Like, that's basically him throwing everything onto the burner and saying, look, we got to win this.
Mhm.
We're down 2-0. I thought that was a move you make maybe minute 70,
Right.
75, but with an entire half, that's what worried me. Not that, again, not that Silvetti came on, but the fact that Silvetti came on and Noah Allen was the one pulled out. Now, at the end of the day, it worked. So, I mean, who am I to say anything else? Like, it worked. It worked. But the question is, that was, the observation for me is that was reactionary.
Mhm.
That's not how he intended to play the game. That was simply
Right.
reacting, which is a good
But now
thing
that he
too,
scored 4
because
goals and a half, do you think he will now make it a new proactive is the question.
well, I just don't think you start the. I don't think he's going to start a game with 3 defenders. I mean, look again, this team, as it did last season, has an issue with counterattacking teams, and every team is going to play into Miami counterattacking. Basically, that's what it looks like if you go based off of the sample size last season and so far this season. Every team is going to counterattack Inter Miami. So
Mhm.
the 3 defenders, I doubt it's something that he's going to want to do or he meant to do. He only did it as a reaction. So we talk about in-game changes and reading the game. Okay, I think he did a good job of reading the game, so at least that's a positive. But now he's got to figure out how to make this team play the correct way from the beginning. I don't think it's going to be 3 defenders. That's crazy. You have Reguilon that's coming back, and you have Noah Allen that I think is a good left back. Like, these are guys that are starters, and I think that this team needs 4 defenders. But the main thing is going to be is figure out the attack. That's been the big issue is the attack. And to me, it's been more and more obvious that Silvetti has to start over Telasco, has to start over Telasco for this offense to work. If not, it doesn't work. At least in two games this season, it does not work at all if you don't have Silvetti and Allende on the pitch, in my eyes.
Well, I think also I don't disagree with you. I think in terms of like, overall and what you're gonna see for the season in general, it will be a back four. I think until Regulon though is healthy, I think we may see more back three than normal or what it's gonna be in the end because you know, I don't know if you can put Segovia on the bench after he gets 2 assists and a goal in the second half of a game in the last game and was instrumental in winning. Like that part of soccer and football in general is like you reward players with what they do on the field and what they do in practice. And so I don't know if you can just see that and then put him on the bench. I'd say adversely, you cannot see what you're seeing out of Silvetti and not start him. So if it's hard to not start either of them, then I think maybe you see a back three with maybe it will be Noah Allen and Maxi Falcon and Ian Frey or Mura or, Mika like, I think you may see different variations of a back three, and I don't know if it's right or if it's wrong. I think, again, when you have Reguilon, it will 100% you're gonna have to figure it out and make some changes, but like, for right now and what I expect to see against DC, I don't know if, I don't know if you don't you kind of like, what's like, strike while the iron's hot, right? Like, you don't wanna I mean, that is such a it was really, like, a wildly different game. I mean, Inter Miami could have scored, like, 7 goals. And this was a point too, I mean, I think I don't disagree with you where they, like I don't I agree with you, Gian, in the sense that, like, they weren't good in the first half, they did their goalie did have really good saves, and Messi probably normally would score one of those goals. But there was no confidence and it was tiki taka and there was no, like, moment of attack or brilliance that you wanted to see, and Bertarame was not getting in good spaces, was not creating or being dangerous, and that's is on coaching. With the changes though, I think it will be interesting to see what happened, when we have Ayala back. Obviously, condolences to him and his family. His father died, so we're gonna have to wait and see about that. But there's so many unknowns, and I guess for me, I'm just saying, like, the season could have really started with us really behind the 8 ball and a lot of questions being asked, a lot of problems, but whatever they did in the second half and the changes Mascherano made, I mean, the way they celebrated the goals together, the energy, the goals, and, like, it was great. And now it's just a matter of can you continue it? And with that in mind, let's let's talk about obviously some of the supporting cast, quote unquote, and how they stepped up. Now I only put 3 here. There's many to talk about. There's something to be said about all 11 players, including the goalkeeper. Um, but the ones I want to start with is obviously Silvetti comes in, scores an absolutely great goal, makes an instant impact, keeping people on their toes all the time. Like I said, Segovia did not have a good first half, but gets 2 assists and a goal in the second half. Deserves credit for that. Bertarame, overall, I know I said last week that I liked what I saw. I did not like what I saw for the first 60 minutes last night. I really didn't like it. I was like, man, you gotta give yourself more. Like I know you're trying to make life easier for Messi, but man, you're the striker. You need to make yourself more known. But but with that being said, the move he made in order to create the chance and the goal that put Inter Miami ahead was sensational. And that is like that's a move that you want like a great number 9 does, you know? And so for that, I'm like, good. We need way more of that. We need 100% of that. Um, Starting with those 3 though, like what are your thoughts about that? And did you like or didn't like what you see, or do you expect something different?
I don't know what the heck Macherano's trying to do with Berterame. I'll be fully
Yeah.
transparent. Like I don't know why he brought him, and I don't know what he's trying to do with him now. Let's be honest with him. This team didn't play with a central forward, and they won an MLS Cup. Usually, when you win MLS Cup and you figure out a winning recipe, you try to, mimic it or do the same. So the next season, and he completely changed. Bringing in Berterame, he completely changed, and he went back to what wasn't working with Suarez. Again, I know it's a different player, and obviously Suarez wasn't running, but if you look at what he's doing, to me, it just doesn't make sense. You have Tadeo Allende. I don't think Berte was a Manchester signing. Maybe it'll be interesting if we ever find that out. But the spaces that Berterame needs are not there for him to be able to flourish. If you look at the way he played in Mexico, he had all the space in the world playing down the middle. He's a guy that always had the passes made to him right into the middle of the box. Centers. This Inter Miami team hardly ever centers the ball. They hardly ever center the ball. Right now, Tadeo Allende plays central along with Messi. So Allende is taking up Berterame's space. You see Berterame all the time sometimes playing out wide. He's always clogged up in the middle. He doesn't have space to do what his game needs, the way that he plays. So at this point in time, I don't know why he's there, or what March is trying to do with him. And I think that's one of the primary reasons why this attack is not working like it should. Again, it's
Mhm.
crazy to say after a 4-2 win, but we have to take into consideration, and I think somebody mentioned it in the comments, the 4 goals came after Orlando parked the bus up 2-0, and Inter Miami brought on another attacker. Like it's a different game. So yeah, Berterame, it's a question mark for me to figure out what. I don't want to blame him for it. I think he's done the
That
best
was
of
a
his
sick move
ability.
though, right?
Yeah, no, it was a beautiful move. It was a beautiful move. And it opened up the space for that goal. So I think kudos to him. But look, you can have a great forward like Berterame on your team, but if you don't put them in a position to succeed, it's not going to work. So Mache has to figure that out. We talk about Silvetti. Again, Silvetti, we said it, plays really well. What I will say about Silvetti is it looked very strange, but I felt like, I don't know if anybody else felt like this, but after the first 15 minutes, he went in there, absolute firecracker from outside the area, beautiful goal. But after about 15, 20 minutes, I felt like he had no legs under him. He looked tired. I don't know if it
Mm.
was just me. I don't know if you saw that, Ash, but he was exhausted after
Maybe the
15, 20 minutes.
adrenaline wore off after getting the goal right
I don't
away.
know what it was. He came in fast as heck and everything, but after that, he was
Yeah.
just dragging his legs. So that's something that he's gonna have to work on. And then obviously Segovia. Segovia had a good game, but I don't think he should start over Silvetti.
Mm.
Just because a player has a good game doesn't always mean that that's something that I mean, we've seen it. I feel like if you've watched enough football, you've seen it time and time again that you see a player come off of the bench. He gets subbed in minute 80. He scores in minute 81.
Right.
That I mean, and he wins the game for you. And it's like, okay, yeah, what a substitution. That doesn't mean he has to start the next game. And I think in this case, you have to applaud the great game that Segovia had in especially in the second half. The fact that he got those assists, the fact that he scored, and you have to say, damn, we have a good player in Segovia,
Hmm.
but a good player that's going to come off the bench and have a great um effect on the game once he comes in. But Silvetti, in my opinion, has to start from the beginning. I don't know if you want to talk about De Paul
I was about to say,
or
I wanted to talk about the great transition because I wanted to talk about a few. Like I had only put three here, but like a few people I wanted to shout out. Number one, Yannick Bright, who I think obviously with the whole thing with Ayala is why he has started these two games. I think, but man, like Yannick Bright, and even having to be a center back for the majority of the second half, like an absolute baller. We've been saying this for a very long time. I feel the same way about Ian Frey. I think Ian Frey is a baller too, and we'll see in the end how Mascherano is able to get him in good spaces and use him well. But Yannick Bright was everywhere, played a hell of a game, and just was glue for the team. I would say the same for Mikael on defense. Had to do something he's not normally doing, which is coming in and kind of playing on the left side, left center back, left back really, and was everywhere you needed. And like, think about the fact that he had run and created that corner off of what should have been Orlando just getting the ball, and the momentum. He was really part of the momentum swing, and so those two to me notably deserve like applause, right, for like what I thought were two players who put in a real shift, did what they had to do for the team to get the win. Rodrigo De Paul, I'll start with this. He is, I think, out still after first two games, has had the most possession of any player in MLS, most touches, um, running the most, covering the most of areas of the pitch, playing the most, has the most emotion, right? Has the most desire, has the most willingness, etc. But at the same time, I will say the first goal was because he gave up the ball off of a cheap giveaway. Same thing that he did in the match before. Saw a few missed chances in the first half that he either didn't do the right pass or he did something else. Messi even got on his case for something, which you don't see very often. Um, Rodrigo De Paul, I think, is sort of the player that there's so much good, but then there are moments that are like head scratchers. Overall, though, still like filling the hole that we need from him. He just needs to clean it up. That's my feeling. What about you?
I think Rodrigo De Paul has been really good for Inter Miami these first two games. I
Oh
think
wow!
I think he's improved drastically over last season. I think
Even
he
though
started
both
slow
gave
last
up two
season.
goals.
Yeah, well, I think that those are two things that he definitely needs to clean up. I think that part of that we're probably seeing more of that than last season is because of the fact that he has the ball more at his feet than he did last season. He's more involved. It's kind of like in basketball where you expect more turnovers to come out of the point guard, the one that handles the ball more. I think if you
Yeah.
look back at last season, if you can
Oh,
remember
that's a great
Busquets,
analogy. That's a great analogy, yeah.
yeah, if you can remember last season, Busquets also had some turnovers that were uncharacteristic, but the reason that we would see a lot more turnovers from Busquets again is because he was the one that was building out of the back, like De Paul is doing this season. So I think that's one of the reasons that we see, but that's still no excuse. That's something that he has to figure out, especially if he's going to take on that responsibility. And that's something that Mascherano wanted from him, even starting last season, um, because he wants Messi to be on the receiving end and not always the one having to go down and to bring the ball up.
Mhm.
Because at that point in time, then you don't have a floating Messi in the attack and having to take all of the acknowledgement from the defenders to be able to open up spaces for other players like Tadeo Allende running in or Berterame. So I think this is great to have Rodrigo De Paul a lot more part
Mhm.
of the build out of this game. It's just those are things like you said. He had the first had the error in both first goals of both of these last games, and I think that that's something he needs to to take care of quickly. But let's not let that overshadow
The
how
good he's
good he's
doing, yeah.
played. Yeah, I mean, he's been very involved. You said it. I don't know if you were stating a fact, Ash, about him having the most possessions,
No, no,
but
that's true. They said it
it is
on
true.
the
Okay.
broadcast, yeah.
Okay, okay. So I 100%. I mean, you can see it
Yeah.
on the field. He has the ball at all times. Now, as he continues to go into this role where he has this much possession, he'll have to get a little better at the passes that he's making. He had some great passes, but there were also some passes that he made that you were like, maybe it's, I think, familiarity and chemistry with some of the players he's passing to now, because you see that he intends that pass is going to go down a certain way, and he thinks the player is going to run a certain route, and the player runs to the right instead of the left, and they don't
Mhm.
connect on the pass. So I think that with time we'll probably see some of that getting a little better. But I really love what I've seen with him, and I think you also mentioned Yannick Bright. Yannick Bright, I think, has done good. He's done really well, and I think you see a lot more confidence from him, where
Him,
he is
Messi, and
not a
DePaul are doing
yeah.
great passes to
No,
each
they're
other, like,
doing great.
they're completely
100%.
knowing where they're gonna be, which is impressive for Yannick Bright, because obviously Messi and
Yeah.
DePaul have been playing together for 20
And
plus
even
years.
the confidence with the ball at his feet. I mean, when
Mhm.
he has the opportunity and he sees a space, he's willing to step up into that space with the ball and run at players before making the pass. That's something that I think last season you didn't always see. You would see the ball at his feet and him try to find an outlet to pass the ball as soon as possible, not really having the confidence with the play to playing the ball at his feet and again moving into those spaces. So you saw a lot more of that this early on in this season in these two games, him really dribbling a lot more, and I love the passes that he's making. So he's a guy
Mhm.
that I think is a starting caliber player, but it'll definitely be between him and Ayala to see
Yeah.
who's gonna be starting with Rodrigo de Paul as those two center midfielders. So
Mhm.
so we'll see. It'll probably come down to really who's in the best shape and who does best at practice at this point, I
Right.
think.
Well, I will say that was such a great analogy, Gian, and while I had thought that Rodrigo de Paul had been good, I was thinking, I was a little bit more on the fence, and you've, like, taken me off of it, and you're 100% right. Like, Rodrigo de Paul has been really, really great, and so, I really liked the partnership between him and Yannick Bright early on. Like I said, Messi has played with Yannick Bright for the last 2 plus seasons, has played with DePaul for 20 plus years. But Bright is doing his best and doing great 1-2 touches with Messi and with DePaul and figuring out the spacing that they want to be in, and like it's been really impressive.
Yeah. No, yeah, and I think that these are two good points that Guardiola, it's a funny name, Pepto
Pepto Bismol.
Guardiola. Our RDP is being asked to do too much. He's not the passer that Busquets is. He's a progressive carry guy, but we don't have a great progressive passer. So I think that he is being there's a lot being asked of him. And I think that he's honestly, I think he's capable of.
Hold it, yeah.
I'm not gonna pretend or compare him to Busquets. That would be a disservice to Rodrigo de Paul in the same way that it would be a disservice to compare Noah Allen to Jordi Alba. We're not going to do that. But I think that Rodrigo de Paul has the skill set and the ability to be able to make good passes and to be able to bring the ball up. If not him, who else? And again, you don't want Messi to be the one to have to bring up the ball. So, but yeah, a lot is being asked. And then uh, Tony, yeah, that might be the case, that he may be trying too hard and overthinking some of the passes that he's trying to make simply because he has that pressure on him. So yeah, that could be something in his mind that he'll have to get over quickly and realize that sometimes you don't have to play the sensational pass, play the easy pass, play
Right.
as opposed to always trying to hit a home run. There are going to be times for Rodrigo de Paul where he sees a Allende or Berterame running into space, or Messi with a perfect with beautiful space right in the middle to be able to create a beautiful pass, and he's going to go for those, even though they may sometimes be difficult passes, but not all the time are those passes going to be there, nor does he have to force that type of pass. Again, sometimes it's just play the open man, and I think that that'll come with time.
Yeah. 100%. I think that's, yeah, really good analysis, and everyone putting in really good thoughts about it too. Okay, well, before we get to our last topic, which is like how important is this game going to be in terms of the rest of the season and just like what are we going to see next. That's how we're going to end the show. But before we get to that, I think we've talked at length about all the players, the coaches, the substitutions. I'll really quickly touch on Allende, which is that, especially in the beginning, was making good runs, creating good chances. I think he was got a little bit of a knock, and obviously didn't play. Was had that period of time where he wasn't playing with the team. I'm not worried about Allende at all. Like I think we'll see more of the goals, more of the assists, more of all of that. Like just give it a little bit of time. The last player that I want to talk about, that I think a lot of people have opinions on is our goalkeeper, Dane St. Clair. Now, just to show a couple of comments already that we got earlier in the episode, I'm still up in the air about the new goalkeeper, not a big fan. DSC and Dane St. Clair may not be suited for this style of football that we play. Rocco. And I'm sure people in the comments are gonna tell me now, what your thoughts are on this goalie. I will start with what we initially thought, which is that, wow, like, Rocco Rios Novo had a phenomenal postseason and did a great job taking over from Mustadi. But we both thought the same thing was like, wow, Inter Miami just got the 2025 goalkeeper of the year from MLS, who's, trying to be the starting goalkeeper for Canada. Like, that's great. Every position we're trying to be the best at. Like, great. Last week, the whole team didn't play well. I think, Dane St. Clair had I think one of the goals, a little bit of an error on his part, and it was a bit rocky, and I was like, like needs to get his feet wet. In this first half, you know, we sort of disagree on this, but I would say overall the idea is that like he wasn't giving these bouts of confidence, didn't have that strong hand, didn't do something where you're like, this is zero fault of him. Like he's been great. He's been so like haven't had that. And it was surprising because he was so good last year and in the last few seasons in MLS and for his country. Um, Man, it was pretty surprising. In the second half, he made, I would say, two really, really good saves, like really good saves that were like, oh, that was really important that you did that and allowed Inter Miami to continue with the momentum and keep scoring. Um, a good finish, but not a good start. What are your thoughts about him? And do you think it's too small of a sample size? Do you think it was nerves? Do you think it was adjusting to the people he's playing with? Do you think it was that the defense was like a lot of things, meaning like, was it the chicken or the egg? Was it the surrounding and the situation and the teammates? Or was it him specifically that has kind of led to this rocky start? So I know I asked a lot there. I put a lot there, but yeah, trying
No,
to set
no,
the stage.
no, that's perfect. I have several points. One, I'll start with this. Look, and I'll bring this comment up. I'm old school. This is from Harold. I'm old school. I ride or die with the keeper that won us the MLS Cup, Rocco Rios. I bring that up because if we can remember one of the episodes that we did before the season started, we were talking, I believe it was actually breaking news
Yeah, on the show. Yeah.
during on the show that St. Clair was coming. And then we talked a little bit about it. And then we talked on the following episode about it. And I remember looking at the statistics of St. Clair and looking at Rocco Rios Novo. And I was honestly like, okay, cool. Like you're bringing in, quote unquote, a really great goalkeeper of the year. Yeah, I mean, who would say no to that? But then when you look at the statistics, I felt like Rocco had a better season than the quote unquote best keeper in MLS. And I would have done the same thing. If you win MLS Cup with a keeper that did very well, I wouldn't have changed it. So I'll just make that point and say I agree with that. And I said that in the episode that I personally would have stuck with
Same
Rocco.
point.
I'll say that. Here's the other thing. In regards to actually how do I feel like St. Clair is doing, I'll say this. When I think about Inter Miami and them losing that first game and then going down 2-0 that first half, my first thought is not the goalkeeper. Like that's not the first. Okay, we can analyze the goalkeeping. Yes, we can. But the first thought of why is this happening? Why did we get scored on 3 times against LAFC? Why did we get scored on 2 times in the first half against Orlando? My first thought was not, damn the goalkeeper. Oh my goodness, the goalkeeping. My first thought was, for real, all full transparency, my first thought was, this team continues to struggle against fast teams that counterattack and counterattack with 2, 3, 4 passes and are already in the final third. Inter Miami needs to figure out what the heck they're going to do with that, because this isn't a new problem. This is a problem that stems even from last season. They suck at defending the counter attack against fast attacking teams. That was my first thing. Meaning, it's not the goalkeeper. It's the positions they put themselves in, losing the ball at inopportune times, losing the ball on their own half, silly errors, and then not knowing how to get back in time to be able to stop a shot from point blank in the goal and getting scored on. That was my first thing, not goalkeeping. So I want to make that clear first. So I have not blamed any of these issues on St. Clair. Now, with the same hand, I can look at St. Clair and I can deduce that, okay, there have been errors. There have been errors. But if we look at the LAFC game, what's the only error? The second goal. In my and that's debatable. But when he comes out and Buonga lofts the ball over him, okay, I'm gonna say that was an error. He shouldn't have come out. But at the end of the day, why did he come out? Because of a counterattack that was poorly defended, right? That first goal that was scored on him in LAFC, that's not a goalie's error. If we remember, I believe that goal was scored point blank in front of him. Like, it's a one-on-one. You can't expect the goalie to stop that. And then the second goal, again, it was a quick counterattack with a pass in the middle that was very tough to stop. So none of those two do I look at and say, damn, St. Clair really screwed up on that one. Against Orlando, that first goal, you can debate. It was on the goalie's post. He should have stopped it. It hits him and it goes up. But at the end of the day, what was it? It stems off of a Rodrigo de Paul error into a quick counter, right? And then the second goal against Orlando was, by Orlando is not a goal. It was a quick play with a shot from inside the area.
Right?
Like you're really expecting, like, you can't put that on St. Clair. So my point is, there was a couple of times, 2 times specifically, that I can say maybe he should have done better, right? The other 3, it's not his fault. It's more on the defense. So I'm not overly concerned with St. Clair at this point. I'll say that. I'm not overly concerned. It's still early on in the season. He hasn't shown anything that I will say at this time it's the reason why we lost the game. At no point. I'm more concerned about this defense. I'm more concerned about this offense. And I put the blame more on them than I would on St. Clair. So St. Clair for me is not an issue right now. He's not the reason why we've had why we have had issues in these 2 games. Again, we won the second game, but that first half is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I had tweeted from our account saying that, in the first half, I had just at that point wasn't impressed, and my feeling was just like, you don't need to be the one to make 100 saves, and like, if there's, one-on-one or the second goal, for example, that Orlando scored, I don't expect you to stop that. But the idea is that, like, I should feel like positive, and that, like, man, like, our goalie, if he can, he will stop it. And I was not feeling that level of confidence. I will say, in the second half, had a couple really good saves where I did feel the confidence and I did feel better about it. And similarly to what I'm saying about Mascherano and about certain players, where that, like, I didn't like what I saw the first 3 halves, but then they made adjustments and they delivered when they needed to, and it led to Inter Miami winning. I'm gonna say the same for him, and I'm gonna give him the grace of, let's see what the next game looks like in the game after that. Like, he is the starter for this Inter Miami team. He was goalkeeper of the year, and he's trying to, similarly to the Orlando goalkeeper, he's trying to cement his spot as starting for Canada in the World Cup. Like, it's it's pretty big, and it's really important. So he needs to be at his very best. Made some redeeming saves, and we'll see how it kind of plays out, right? I saw a couple comments about Spanish. I will say this. There's 2 points. Number one, yes, they all speak Spanish, but Noah Allen speaks English, Ian Frey speaks English, Yannick Wright speaks like, and they all know English words. Like I'm sure they like, and I'd say conversely, for someone who's played soccer in North America at a really high level for his whole life, not the first time Dave St. Clair has had teammates who only speak Spanish. I can promise you that. And I'm sure there are very common words that they all learn and play, and they practice together every single day. And I don't think language barrier, whether it's like derecha, like sigue, all these words, like he knows. I'm sure he knows, and I'm sure they say come or back or I got it or whatever. Like they all understand that. I'm not worried about that.
No, yeah. I'm not going to report this as fact, but a quick Google search says that St. Clair is taking Spanish lessons. So
Exactly. So I mean, problem solved. But in all seriousness, like I'm sure both them, just like Messi's, and you never see him speak English, whatever. He knows English. I'm sure has had to communicate with people at Inter Miami and people in America in English. They can do it. That is not my concern. Um,
yeah.
it's the strategy and the play and the positions that he's getting put in that makes you worry. Like I said before we kind of transition and finish off, um, this is a good way to kind of get into the overall thoughts.
Yeah, so Ash says, quick question. Why do we kill our momentum on our breakaways by stopping to pass back or to wait for other players to catch up? That's the big question. I think that's what cost Inter Miami a lot of opportunities. Why? Because we know that the strategy is the passing, the tiki taka, the slow possession. Inter Miami doesn't play with speed, and I don't know why. That's a big question, Ash. I wish that Macherano would ask this team to play differently, especially when they have the
Mhm.
opportunity to counterattack, because they just never they don't take those opportunities, which makes it that much more difficult just because it gives the opponent all the time in the world to be able to set up defensively and be able to pressure and do everything they need to do and close all of the spaces. And at that point in time, everything is clogged and it's more difficult. But then again, you look at teams like LAFC and Orlando in that first half, where as soon as they get the ball, they're all guns blazing, three guys running up, three quick passes, and they're in the final third. And then I think that Inter Miami, when you look at a player like Berterame, a player like Tadeo Allende, that are great at running into space, if you played with a bit more pace, and not asking you to play run and gun here like like it's the Premier League or anything, but if you played with a little bit more pace,
Mhm.
this team could take advantage of Berterame and Allende, and especially if Silvetti is in there as well. Imagine those three guys. As soon as you get the ball, Rodrigo de Paul gets the ball, gives it to Messi, and those three run into space. Man, I'm telling you, just a bit more pace, it completely changes the way this team plays. So I don't know. Both DSC and Berterame need time. Even top players like Mbappe and Alvarez, etc., needed time to adjust to the new team. I agree. I agree that
Mhm.
players need to build that chemistry, especially going on to a new team, especially a team that has a lot of new faces in it,
Yeah.
a team that's trying to play differently. Obviously, they're not playing the same style that they played in that postseason. But another thing is true is in order for those players to adjust to the new team, the coach needs to find a way to have them I think in the right spots. Now obviously goalkeepers it's a bit different, but talking about Berterame can scored I think it was 28 goals in across all competitions in Liga MX last season.
Mhm.
I mean,
Right.
he they need to make sure that Macherano needs to make sure that he is able to play in the right spots so that he can actually score goals. We look at, for example, you talk about players, you named it, Alvarez and Mbappe. Think about Ibrahimovic when he was playing for Barca and he had Pep Guardiola. Ibrahimovic, in a recent interview, was talking about that whole issue that he had there and why he ended up leaving, because he told Guardiola, I'm a player that needs space. You keep clogging the center up with Messi. I can't play like that. I don't have the space to do what I do. And Guardiola, which I hope Macherano doesn't do. Guardiola was hard headed and said that's how we play. And Ibrahimovic ended up having problems. Ibrahimovic ended up getting benched 3, 4, 5 games in a row and ended up leaving. I hope that doesn't happen again. in this case with Berterame and Mache. Mache needs to understand that Berterame needs space to order to operate and to be able to do what he does best. So
Yeah.
we'll have to see what happens with that.
100%. No, I think it's a good point, and I think that's a really great way to transition to our last point of the day, which is what is it gonna look like moving forward? You know, how important was this win? I will say to finish out the show, I mean, first of all, shout out to everyone who's participated. We have had an hour of constant, participation, great comments, great points, great questions, just, like, really, you guys are awesome, and it's been really fun, and I think warranted because last night's game was all of the things. There was so much to talk about, so much to see, such a spectacle, and it deserved to get this type of show. And so I'll finish off with, like, how important is this win for the season, and will the team continue on this path and be able to, maximize the momentum switch, right? Because we were 45 minutes away from basically being, like, on fire. Everyone's saying all these expensive players that we signed, like Bertarame, like, Dane Sinclair, like, players not playing good at all. Inter Miami losing, multiple goals each game, 0-2 to start the season, still a month away from playing their first home game in all of these tournaments, World Cup coming, etc. There was sound the alarm everywhere. But the second half was something completely different. Scored 4 goals. Messi talking his talk, gets 2 amazing goals. Totally the atmosphere, the energy, the team camaraderie, amazing. Is it gonna continue on? And how important just was this to be able to get our feet back to level and kind of reset as a team and remember, like, "Oh, yeah, we're the best team in MLS." Like, we're the best team, some would say, in North America. Like, we have the greatest player of all time. We are gonna win, and this was just a reminder of that.
Yeah, I think this game was very important for us to win, for Inter Miami to win. Imagine losing against LAFC in prime time in the first game of the season against a team that's supposedly you're probably your biggest foe, your biggest hurdle to winning MLS Cup, losing to them, and then coming back and losing against your biggest in-state foe, El Clásico, a game that is a meaningful game. I think that would have been disastrous for the team, bro, both from a moral perspective and obviously starting off 0-2. That would have been awful. I think demoralizing as well. So I think that it was pivotal and important and great to have this result to come out and win 4-2 and now be 1-1 on the season. But I think what's more important than that is Materano understanding what works and what doesn't. And I think we've seen what works and what doesn't. And I hope that he learns and he's able to pivot and change, because obviously what we saw those first 3 halves, 2 halves against LAFC, first half against Orlando, doesn't work.
Mhm.
Having Allende take up the space that Berterame takes up, having Messi take up that space, having Telasco Segovia play as a left on that left side doesn't work. Having, there are different things there that I think Macherano
Mhm.
has to take from that game, learn and change. It's early on in the season, still plenty of time to learn, plenty of time to get acclimated. But I think in two games, it's very clear what's not working. And I think that's what's most important moving forward, is that he's able to take that from this game and adjust appropriately. Why? And I'll say this, look, we've heard a lot of talk about it's early on in the season, but it's early on in the season when you talk about MLS Cup, when you talk about Supporter Shield. It's not early on in the season when you talk about Champions Cup.
Right.
And we have to remember how important this season is and how much we've been sold on the idea as fans, as media, that this team is going to win multiple trophies this season, that MLS Cup is not enough this season, that winning a Champions Cup is the goal this season. And if winning Champions Cup is the goal this season, figuring this out like you did last season just in time for MLS Cup is not enough.
Mhm.
You're not going to win anything if you figure it out just in time for MLS Cup like you did last season. 2 games in, you need to figure it out by game 3. No more pushing something that doesn't work. No more trying to play with 2 forwards up front. No more trying to play with Telazo Segovia as a winger. No more trying to figure out that this team without an active Silvetti getting a lot of minutes. No more. There's no time if you want to win Champions Cup. And if Mascherano is stubborn and decides to continue playing with what he thinks works best, again, in these first 3 halves that we saw this season, then we're not winning Champions Cup. And so that's important. Learning lesson. If
Yeah.
he learned, good.
100%. I 100% agree. I think you said it perfectly. Getting competitive and making sure you stay competitive early on and fix your issues is super important for this team. And 100%. Like I think 100%. Look, I thought even though the first half was troubling and there are questions that have to be answered, changes that have to be made, I'm very looking forward to seeing what that looks like with DC. We're also obviously we're working on getting back Ayala and Regulon, which are going to be two incredibly important people for this team and how the team plays. Um, but I'll just say last night was a real joy to watch as a fan of soccer and as a advertisement these last 2 weeks as an advertisement for MLS. Obviously we see Messi. We've had the pleasure of seeing him, uh, you know, so close these last couple of seasons. But just the overall aura and atmosphere we're getting from MLS at the LAFC game at the Coliseum, this game in Orlando, the heated rivalry, the emotions, the good, the bad, the ugly, the passion, like we're getting a great advertisement for MLS and the players that are joining MLS right now is making it awesome. Thank you for that. It was a great show because of all of you guys giving your thoughts. We're turning into this really great community, I think, and talking about and going through all these amazing moments and games and takes has been really great. So shout out to everyone. It was a great episode. Great job, Gian. Shout out to you. I hope everyone liked the new intro and we're really now, I think, kicking off this season and getting into like the nuts and bolts and it's gonna be a really fun ride. So yeah, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their night. Let us know. Make sure you are following us on X at Messi Co. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube at 5 Reasons Football so we can keep putting out this amazing, uh, interactive, exciting content and these live episodes. We're live every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. I know we have a lot of global audiences, but that's what we're sticking with, and that's where you can find us. So for this episode of Messi and Co, I'm Ashley. That is Gian, and we will see you next time.
See y'all.